And what's your drug of choice, brother?
Heroin.
Crystal meth.
Meth and heroin.
Crystal meth.
Meth?
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that doesn't smoke.
You don't know anybody that doesn't smoke meth?
No.
Because they allow the open air drug market.
Open street gaming like that, with the cops just across the street, like, watching them. I've never seen anything like it, and I've been in the game for fucking 30 years, dude. Never seen anything like it.
All right, I was about 9 years old when crack cocaine kind of hit the streets of Detroit in 1984. And I grew up next to a liquor store in the middle of Detroit, so I'm well versed in what the introduction of that new drug did to some communities. But I'm also here in 2022 LA, and as you can see behind me, some new drugs have had quite an impact, not only on LA, but it's spreading around the country, fentanyl, meth. But this so-called Skid Row, which is more like get free services, live rent-free in a tent, be treated like a victim, and use all your money to get high row, is really epicenter and ground zero for the cutting edge of what's going on in the dope game on the streets in America, because we're right near the border of Mexico, where they're making fentanyl and crystal meth, and that's what they love sending up here.
It's like a third world country. Look at it. It is. We gotta fight with rats, people.
Now, in the peak, one of the peak years of the so-called cocaine epidemic, say 1989 or 90, there was only about 5,000 or so total drug overdose deaths in the United States. You know how many there were last year? 108,000. As we know, most of that is being caused by opioids, but really fentanyl. And just one of my longtime guests, or multiple-time guests, Ryan Leone, who the last time I interviewed him a couple months ago, he was stopping and stepping outside to take breaks of smoking his $5 blue fentanyl pills off of aluminum foil. He OD'd a few weeks back. And the fentanyl is coming largely in that pill form now. In Inglewood, just not a few miles from here, they just caught 1 million fake oxys yesterday. 1 million fake oxys. And but we know about fentanyl, but then here in LA, and fentanyl's in a lot of everywhere. I mean, I'm from Detroit. Fentanyl is probably worse there than anywhere. The new meth, and the meth is not new, but what is new is the volume and purity of this real perfected kind of meth. So meth has some effects that make you overheat and your heart beat fast, which is actually kind of good because that controls a person's usage. But some of this new stuff that's real pure, you just get the high effect and your body's not signaling you shouldn't be doing it, and you have all these people in these weird psychoses.
So are you seeing more people showing up in psychotic states naked now than, say, 2-3 years ago?
Yes, I think so.
I don't know what they're putting in this stuff. I don't know if it was aliens. I'm not trying to sound crazy and stuff.
There were 15,000 meth deaths, overdoses last year, which again, that's triple the most. I mean, well, that was 5,000 of all overdoses. That's probably 4 or 5 times more than any year's worth of cocaine deaths. But you know, the opioids are so overwhelming. But meth death has tripled in the last 4 years to about 15,000. And here on the streets of LA, I think the pounds are for as low as 2,000 or less. I might have read 1,000 for a pound of meth. And it's the spread of these drugs, usage and trafficking around the country. It's also tied in with this anti-government, defund the police, bail reform. So just the other day in Manhattan, 2 guys named Mr. Estrada and Mr. Santos got caught with 150 pounds of crystal meth, which would be worth several $1 million on the streets of the Rotten Apple. Probably picked up here for 200 grand. If it came from Mexico, you know, probably more like 50 grand.
$1.2 million in crystal meth was seized in Manhattan. New York City's special narcotics prosecutor says 2 men from Southern California were arrested. Investigators say large quantities of meth found last week.
And because of the New York bail reform laws, the judge was not able to give them a bail, by which I don't mean they didn't get out. I mean they didn't have to pay anything to get out. So guys that drove from across the country and got caught with millions of dollars of hard drugs, which up till now in America would get you put under the jail. Not saying that's right or wrong. They got out on no bail a couple days later. Who knows where they are now? And like I said, right down the road in Inglewood, they just got 1 million fake oxys.
Well, the feds have announced a historic bust seizing 1 million fake pills containing fentanyl. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration seized the pills in Inglewood earlier this month.
They had 150,000 fake oxys the other day up in Tulare County, which is near Fresno. And the real fear is, you know, in the age of cocaine, heroin, marijuana, those are plants that the government could interdict if you feel like the usage is getting out of control. But even with cocaine, when they interdicted on availability of ether, that's when you really saw crack start to rise, because the cocaine, it was hard to make into that crystalline powdery substance people wanted to snort, and it began coming gummy, like as if it was meant to be cooked into crack, which it was because they couldn't process it as well. But with meth and the fentanyl now, they're able to get precursor chemicals that are part of all sorts of industrial processes that you can't clamp down on, and they're making them in little homemade labs right across the border. Both fentanyl and crystal meth cost them almost nothing to make. They don't care if they lose a load, and if the runners are getting let out on no bail, there's no punishment. As you can see, downtown LA, I mean LA in general, but especially downtown and, well, really Hollywood and some other hot spots, is a total garbage can. It's awful. And wherever potent, super cheap meth is prevalent, LA being number one, that's probably adding to the crazy behavior outside, maybe even the people choosing to live outside. Healthcare professionals, law enforcement, and me are seeing people behave in public more extreme ways than I ever have. It's one thing to be mentally ill, but where does the superhuman energy come from in some of these videos? Some of these people they're like zombies from The Walking Dead.
Say Friday in Hollywood, they have a Catholic church that gives this stuff out. This is where we living at, y'all, and this is what the government's doing. This is a meth pipe, yep, right here with this bubble thing. I guess you put the meth in there. This is a crack pipe, yep. Okay, these are all instructions on how to overdose treatment and education. This is the needle in here. I'm not going to open this. That's for heroin? Yes, for heroin. It has the alcohol pass. That's a real needle? It's a needle in there. Oh my God. And these things are like a black and mild filter that you put on the crack pipe so you don't think no one's saliva, so you don't get sick, and you can do your drugs. And so this is they're like, if you're going to do drugs, we're going to give it to you so that you can do it the proper way without getting sick. Because we're not stopping it. We're not going to stop.
So meth got synthesized in early 1900s, but first came into widespread use like during World War II. German and German and Japanese soldiers are using it, maybe American. After the war, when Japan was trying to build its economy, a lot of its people were using it just to go to work. Like 3% of the population was addicted. Now in the U.S., traditionally it got manufactured and distributed by bikers. In the early 2000s, though, small labs started popping up in a lot of states, especially in the West, but in the Midwest as well. When I was in jail in Phoenix, they were giving out 9-year sentences for having labs like candy. But after 2006, the guys from the other side of the border started building super labs up in the States to beat out the local mom and pop, if you will. And it was a very lucrative business. The Flores twins, the guys who snitched on El Chapo, they did a single deal where they bought certain chemicals from Chinese suppliers in Mexico for $24 million, and then they smuggled them into America and sold them for $80 million in one fell swoop. A $56 million profit in one deal. Now, according to law enforcement, kind of overnight, sometime in 2008, the Mexican super labs on this side of the border started to disappear, and they started popping up even bigger on the other side of the border. One lab that was raided not long ago had enough chemicals on hand to produce an estimated 900 metric tons of meth. That's 1.8 million pounds at even a profit of, say, $1,000 a pound. At the top of my head, I think that's 1.8 billion in gross profit from one lab. Now, down in Sinaloa, home of El Chapo, capital of meth, or is he in Jalisco? Yeah, no, he's in Sinaloa. The capital of meth production. The cartels don't just run the business, they tax other people in it. All sorts of small businessmen are getting in on the action. They might pay for a 50-pound load. The cartel is paid to get it over the border and deliver it to the guy's cousin in, say, Atlanta, and the cousin sells it there. With labs popping up everywhere, huge south of the border, price of a pound of meth fell. In LA, I think it's like $1,000 a pound, which is kind of shocking. A 90% drop from a decade earlier. Now, this new super pure meth has the same euphoric effects, but it also, well, meth normally has euphoric effects, but it also makes your heart race and body overheat, so it kind of controls your use. But this new super pure meth is manufactured so well that heart racing is a thing of the past, so there's probably people using it heavier and heavier, so they're not sleeping and they're developing the symptoms that chronic users of meth are really exhibiting now all across the country. Violent paranoia, hallucinations, conspiracy theories, massive memory loss, jumbled speech. I see them every day driving and walking downtown LA.
The story is really pretty gross. A homeless person throwing a full porta potty at a woman who was trying to clean up the balloon.
LA has long been America's homeless capital for a variety of reasons, but the problem's gotten way worse recently. Homelessness has at least doubled in the last 10 years. It's just an estimate. I've been here since 2016, and I've seen Skid Row go from being fairly contained to being all over downtown. During the pandemic, it was absurd. They have tamped it down a little. In LA and definitely downtown LA right now, you can defecate and smoke dope, shoot up, whatever, right on the sidewalk in the afternoon. I've never seen so much strange public behavior. Now, the use of mind-altering substances by humans is age-old, but we've entered a new era when extremely powerful substances can be made not from plants, but from chemicals easily attainable by unsophisticated criminals. It's pretty scary to think about what the future of dope is. Now, we all better hope the rest of America doesn't start looking like downtown LA. And if this new meth is making people weirder and weirder, in the place that produces the entertainment that guides so many celebrity-obsessed lives in the rest of America and the rest of the world.
Leave me the alone, homie. Real shit. Real shit, that part, nigga. Chain swinging and all that, nigga. What you mean? All my fans know I'm the motherfucking realest. I'm on top right now.
I mean, if we're gonna be realistic, they pay you to be homeless here. I've never seen anything like it, and I've been in the game for fucking 30 years, dude.
Not hard to imagine that somehow it's making the whole world slowly weirder and weirder. Now, profit, American dope.